Well, good evening and welcome to the podcast. I'm really glad you're here. And I'd like to thank you for joining us for another fun filled episode of Snowmobile History and Memories with our good friend Midge Rosebrook. Midge, how are you doing tonight?
Glad to join you guys, Mike. Yeah, and we just came off from the great crane show there yesterday. That
What an
vintage show.
experience, huh?
Yeah, 90 some sleds, and I guess it was maybe 100 there. I guess quite a few came after after we started to vote on the sleds. So they didn't get involved, but there was at least between 85 and 90 sleds that were there.
Yeah, very well attended. Both the sleds that came and just plenty of people to show up to experience it. And yeah,
it was wonderful.
It was hopping and it was wonderful. It's a
And
great
the weather
great
was
vibe.
perfect.
Yeah, lots of smiles and laughing and having fun and just a wonderful experience.
It was. Yeah.
Yes. So what we're going to do, Midge, is I want to tell people what we're here for tonight, but we're going to tell them a little bit more about the crane show yesterday and a couple other quick housekeeping things. But this is what we're doing tonight. We're going to have a live screening and a commentary of a DVD that Midge was involved with about 10 or 12 years ago. And it's called Lancaster, New Hampshire, A Town, a Race, the Birthplace of Modern Snowmobiling. And you want to give the quick elevator speech of what that is, and then we'll talk about the other things and then get into that.
Yeah, it's actually we got about 16 or 18 people from Lancaster that were heavily involved in the early days of snowmobiling when the Skidoo first came into the United States in Lancaster. And they talked about the early days of snowmobiling and the Grand Prix that came about because of the second Skidoo coming down into town. You know, that they started racing. So it's and I said a town, a race. The modern day snowmobile. This birthplace of the modern snowmobile, and people, they take offense of that, I think, sometimes. But the Skidoo, as far as I'm concerned, the Skidoo was the modern day snowmobile. The engine was in front of the driver. The driver sat on the seat. His feet were on running boards. He sat over the track. The engine was in front. He steered two skis with handlebars. And every modern day snowmobile has been built ever since on that.
Yeah, that's the layout that's still used today. It's been refined.
Still, it's to say, you can take away
incredibly refined, but it's
still. Yeah, you take away the long travel suspensions and in the multi-cylinder engines and the 100 horsepower engines, and what you have is that same basic design.
Sure.
Of the first Skidoo.
Sure.
So,
in fact, let's use that as a segue. Because we're going to go to Lancaster here for about a 3.5 minute clip of what we were looking at yesterday at the Crane Snowmobile Show. And we're going to see some of those sleds from the very first, the early one, the Eliason's, I think it was a power toboggan, I think they called it.
Yeah.
Motorized toboggan.
Yeah, motor toboggan or something like that.
A lot of machines from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. It's a real eyeful. You're going to see what we were doing yesterday at the Crane Snowmobile Show. And if you like what you see, please try and join us next year. It's always the first Saturday in February at Crane Snowmobile Museum, 172 Main Street in Lancaster. So instead of listening to us talk about it, let's take a look at a clip. It's about 3.5 minutes, and we'll catch up with you on the other side. Well, hello, friends. We are here at the Cranes Snowmobile Show 2024. It's February 3rd, 2024. The 10th annual Cranes Vintage Snowmobile Show in Lancaster, New Hampshire at Crane Snowmobile Museum, 172 Main Street in Lancaster, New Hampshire. Since it's the 10th annual show, they've pulled out all the stops to make it extra special, and we've got an extra special turnout today. This could be possibly the biggest turnout ever. As you can see, there's a sea of people and a sea of sleds, and it's kind of hard to get around with all the people and stuff, but we're going to do it anyway and try to give you a look at as many sleds as we possibly can. So let's get started. This is Phil Bell's Snowjet, 69 Snowjet. So these are Ed Stabs and Jeff Mower's sleds, these here, huh?
I believe so, yeah. Ed's got that, what is this?
That TC?
I've never heard of that.
This one here?
Way up, that orange.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's very unique because the fiberglass cab is incorporated right into the metal of the chassis. So you can't remove the cab.
Interesting.
Yeah, never seen anything like that. That's a 66, which is quite stylish for a 66 sled.
Yeah, definitely. So there you have it, some footage from the Crane Snowmobile Show yesterday in Lancaster, New Hampshire. What a fun time that was. Wasn't that fun, Midge?
Oh, that was a blast. And the weather cooperated this year with highs around, 30, 35 degrees and sunny.
Yeah, no wind to speak of.
Slight breeze, but not bad.
Yeah, and just a wonderful turnout. Just a nice variety of sled and nice quantity of sleds, plenty of people. And just a sea of people, but a sea of smiles.
Oh, yeah.
Just everyone was having a wonderful time.
Yeah, great time. They had good food inside. Compliments of Paul's daughter, Melissa, and her group put on a nice meal in there. And, of course, there was another 150 vintage sleds to see inside the museum besides what you see out here.
Yes, so that tan building in the background is Crane Snowmobile Museum.
Yeah. If you didn't get your fill of vintage sleds yesterday, I don't know what will.
Exactly. If that doesn't do it. Yes.
Yeah.
Now we've got some comments coming in. Let's take a look at those, and we've got a few more quick things about the show, Crane Show. James Whiteside says, "Hi guys, tomorrow is Monday." Oh boy, exactly.
Yeah.
And then someone on Facebook is saying, "Good evening, guys." Good evening back. Let's see. Then we've got our good friend John Spranger Jr. says, "Good evening, everyone from Elon, Wisconsin." Absolutely. In fact, John was there last summer, and he was asking for you.
Yeah, I missed him.
So hopefully next time when he's in town that he'll be able to catch up with you for a visit.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes. And then Alan Gove is in here. I met him at the show yesterday. He because I've been corresponding with him for a while and finally had a chance to meet him in person. We had a nice visit. Very good to see him. He says, "Good evening from New Hampshire. Regular viewer and a good visit with you guys."
Oh, good.
Cool deal.
Yeah.
Tim Bewick says, happy Sunday, Mike and Midge. And our good friend Ben Thomas says, good evening, Mike and Midge. Glad you're
Hi, Ben.
highlighting the crane show. That says the podcast is the next best thing to bring there.
Really, it is. Yeah. Thanks to Mike LaPierre to have these podcasts. We wouldn't be able to enjoy all of this stuff.
Yes, we have a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wonderful collaboration because it's wonderful content for the video stuff I do, and it's great promotion for everything you guys are doing. It's a wonderful collaboration.
Absolutely.
And also, Ben Thomas is saying Ed Stab has a very nice and diverse collection, which is absolutely true.
He does.
We're going to be talking about Ed here in just a minute, but I want to get through a few more of these comments. James Whiteside says, I'm glad that these vintage sleds are still around.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some serious collectors out there
Yes.
that keep the stuff alive.
Yes. And then, yes, someone else is saying, sure looks like a good time. And then, Jeff Maurer is here. Says, good evening. Nice to see you, Jeff. Hope you enjoyed
Jeff.
that look at your sleds.
Yeah, he had some good stuff.
In fact, let's take a peek at those. He owned that, some of these sleds right here. That white Polaris TC and the Scorpion. And I think that Larson, or is that Ed Stabs? I'm not sure because they both came together from upstate New York.
They both came together.
And they had their sleds were together. But that sled in the back, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but I got to get a good interview with Jeff on that sled in the back. That sled was made in Quebec, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. But
yeah,
maybe Jeff will leave it in the comments here with any luck to help us out in a senior moment here. Someone else on Facebook saying very nice. Kevin Colhane says good evening to Mike and Midge, and I'm going to sneeze here. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, folks. I think I might be coming down with something because my throat is tickly and I'm sneezing.
Yeah, hopefully not, Mike.
Yeah, and I hope I don't give it to you guys. So don't get too close to the screen.
Yeah, I won't get too close to the screen tonight.
Yes. Someone else on Facebook saying good evening, everyone. And Jim McCrae says, well, there's some really cool sleds there. Thank you so much. Here we go. Jeff Maurer is coming in the clutch for us. That sled in the background on the far right, that gold sled is called a Cometic.
Wow.
And it's a 1971 Cometic.
Wow, never heard of it.
We're getting a bless you on the sneeze too. James White says bless you. So thank you so much for that. Bless each and every one of you.
Well, thank you.
And then someone else saying I just got one. Must be a cold or a sled. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But and then where are the speedways? I know there's one inside. Were there any speedways outside yesterday?
I don't think we had a speedway outside in the show yesterday, but yeah, there is definitely one. Paul has one inside, or he did have one, but maybe he sold that. Come to think of it,
yeah,
I think
I know it was in the corner under the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. He was in that corner. The speedway was in that corner at one time.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and then here we go. Jeff says that brown 66 Larson is his. The orange Larson is Ed Stabs.
Okay.
Cool deal. Yeah. Oh, and our good friend Steve Dickinson is in the house. He says hello. In fact, let's look at some of his cats. He is he's got some of the nicest cats you'll ever see. Let me see if I can find those.
Best. Top class.
They're in the back there.
Yeah.
Okay, right there. So
yeah, way in back.
The two white ones and the black one in between, and then he's got a couple more to the left of that. In fact, that might be him standing there with the black hat and the green cat jacket.
No.
Or no, is that Dave Stroud? That might be Dave Stroud.
It might be Dave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve was there half an hour before Paul Crane opened up the museum. That's how dedicated Steve is.
Yeah, Steve is serious.
He's a serious collector, and he's a great friend to everybody that's in this business.
Yes, he is a wonderful friend for sure. And it's always good seeing him at these shows.
Absolutely.
Also, our good friend Reese Fleury is in the house saying good evening.
Hi, Reese.
And yeah, this is wonderful.
Oh, yeah, he had a birthday a couple of days ago there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last weekend. Definitely. So one other quick comment about the crane show. We were inside and we managed to get our picture taken with Ed Stab, easily the greatest promoter in the East. Do you want to give just
Absolutely.
a quick taste of his resume?
Yeah, there's nobody that can touch him.
No,
Nobody.
no, for sure.
No,
And
he's
he
going to
does.
do the next national show.
Yes,
I
and he's
heard him
done
telling
several in the
somebody.
past.
Yeah,
He did the one in Old Forge, and he's organized Boonville and the Grand Prix reunion. I think he was the
yeah.
organizer of that. And
The Grand Prix reunion would not have happened if it wasn't for Ed Stab. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
yes, yeah, so many. He's organizer behind so many races and shows and events
Yeah,
and
yeah.
anything to do with snowmobiling in that part of New York State. He's usually behind it.
Success
And
and Ed Stab are in cahoots together.
yes, and
Yeah,
any event you go to that he's behind is very well organized.
very successful.
Anyone who went to Old Forge two years ago knows exactly what I'm talking about. That
Oh
show
my
is very
gosh,
well
what a
organized.
show!
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, and we've got more comments. We've got Stacy and Art Fosler saying, "Hey guys from Plattkill, New York, regular viewers." Here we go. Someone on Facebook is saying Ed is the best, and he
the
absolutely
best.
is. Yes. Oh, and then the 2025 national show will be in Dunkirk, New York, and I believe Ed is behind that as well.
That's right.
Yes. So yeah, shout out to our good friend Ed.
Yeah,
Now, one last quick thing I wanted to do before we get into why we're all here tonight. When we were here last week, we were talking about Claude Hebert. We showed his induction into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, and then we talked for a moment about the tournament. Pardon me, the Tournament of Champions race series. That he was the catalyst for that. He had the idea for that.
right.
So I mentioned on the podcast last week that I might reach out to him, see if maybe he'd be willing to come on at some point to maybe talk that up, see if he had any old images or artifacts from that. So I messaged him, and this is the reply I got. I got a nice reply. He says, "Hello, Mike. I watched the podcast, which was pleasant to relive. I wish I had more info on the Tournament of Champions, but for some reason I was never a person to accumulate pictures or articles or anything like that. I wouldn't be able to give you enough day-to-day info on the Tournament of Champions to make it viable. The day that it was announced that Kawasaki was getting out of racing, we were devastated. 4 of us gathered in the president's office to discuss marketing options. The president, the director of marketing, the business manager, and myself were throwing out ideas. That's when I threw out the idea of having an IROC type of competition for our sleds. The idea snowballed, and from there, the Tournament of Champions was born. Once the idea was formulated, it was up to marketing and research in Shakopee, Minnesota. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It was up to them to develop and prep the sleds. Wish I had more info on the day-to-day doings with that. But yeah, we thank Claude so much for that. Even that is useful information for anyone
Oh
who's
yeah,
familiar with the Tournament of Champions or curious about it. There's some backstory right there for you on that.
yeah, yeah. And it all started with Claude on a motor ski in Colebrook and racing for the local motor ski dealer in Colebrook, and then he raced for Rockwell Distributors out of Maine. And he went from there from motor ski to Snowjet and Kawasaki. And what a tremendous career that Claude had.
Yes, very accomplished.
Yeah. So
for sure.
yeah.
Well, we've got a few quick comments coming in, and we'll get right into the main event tonight. Here we go, talking about the crane show. Hi, guys. Sounds like it went well.
Yeah.
And someone else saying those rups looked great. Yes, those were incredible rups.
Yeah.
Those are Ray Parento's rups. He's a good friend of mine. He always brings some beautiful rups. He's got a serious rup collection, and he brings some to all the shows in northern New Hampshire and northern Vermont. So if you like those, try to attend some of these shows, and you get a chance to meet him in person and hear he's got voluminous backstory on all of those sleds too, which is great. And then, Midnight Rider says Ed will be at the 2024 National Show in Duluth, Minnesota. Yes, I think it's 25 though. Wait, no, 24. Yeah, that's this coming year.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be there. I don't know if he's behind it as far as organization, but
I think he is. I think he said he was.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Because he knows how to put on an event like no one else.
Yeah. It's always successful when Ed does it.
Yes. So well organized, so well run.
Yeah, it's so well organized.
Yes. And then Lena Smith is saying hi to Steve Dickinson. Cool deal. Very cool. So, one more comment. They keep coming in. We appreciate that. Jeff here says, yes, Ed and I are going out there to Duluth. Cool
Yeah.
deal. That's Jeff Maurer.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
That's the thing I love about this podcast is, we get on a topic and, if someone has a question or an answer
Instantly.
without, yeah, or an
Yeah.
answer without a question, we complete
Yeah.
the circle.
Yeah.
I love, this going live like this and everyone's participating and making it a
Yeah.
wonderful conversation.
We had one channel growing up on television, and now we're standing here talking to people that live 500-600 miles away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's a wonderful way to, all of us who are here have memories of how wonderful that was in the 60s and 70s when snowmobiling was just on fire, the glory
Yeah.
days of snowmobiling.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about, with Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, so many of us felt like maybe that was forgotten, but guess what? It's not.
Yeah.
We're here reliving that every week
Yeah.
with people who care about that and who are interested in that and have wonderful memories of that.
Right.
But I'm going to put a graphic up. This is what we're here tonight to do: a live screening and commentary of a DVD that Midge was involved with about 12 or 13 years ago. It's called Lancaster, New Hampshire, a Town, a Race, the Birthplace of Modern Snowmobiling. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll that video, and as we find interesting people to talk about, or situations to talk about, we're going to pause it, and Midge is going to fill us in with some backstory.
Yeah.
So it'll just take me a moment to get it queued up here, and we'll get this party started.
Okay.
And anything, Midge, you want to say to help set this up? Or
This first little film was an 8mm film that was produced by WMTW Channel 8. They came to Lancaster in 1964 to cover the Lancaster's bicentennial winter carnival. And the Grand Prix was part of the Winter Carnival that year. And so this some of this is 8mm film that was produced by Channel 8 over in Portland, Maine.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah.
And the music
is
the music that you hear on this DVD was all produced by Jeff Landrock, who was the guy that edited the whole thing. He had a Beatles band, and he used to edit his group videos of his band wherever they played, and they used to sell DVDs, so he knew how to do the editing. And his family was heavily involved with the snowmobile because his mother is a sister of Butch and John Roberts, who owned Roberts Motors, who sold Skidoo. They're one of the first Skidoo dealers in New Hampshire. So the family went way back in this business, and Jeff jumped all over it, and this is what he did.
Yeah, he did a good job too. And we're about to meet some of the people that were there back in the day when the first Ski-Doo came over the border into the U.S. and the early days of the Grand Prix, and we're going to meet some of those people. And it's good timing that you did this when you did, Midge, because many of them are not here with us anymore.
Yeah.
So it's good that you were able to.
You want me to pop up this photo, Mike?
Yes.
There's a photo of these folks that came to my house one day to talk about this video that you're about to see. Looking at the left there is Butch Roberts in his red sweater, and then who was that next to him? I don't know if that's Mike Beatty. It's hard to tell. Then Whitey Leonard and Sally. No, Mike is behind Sally. Sally's in the purple blouse. And then Claude Reed next to Mike Beatty. And then there's Muriel Clark, and then there's Bob Clark. Oh, yeah, over next to Butch, that was Tim White.
Yes.
Every single one of those gentlemen are now gone. Wow. The only ones left are the ladies.
Wow.
And Sally is the only lady that spoke on this DVD. The other ladies were involved with the Grand Prix and snowmobiling early on, but they didn't want to sit in front of the camera. Sally was the brave one, and she's the only lady that sat in front of the camera and talked about it.
Wow. But it's good that you did this when you did.
Yeah. Out of the 16 or so people that we interviewed, there's 11 people that have passed now.
Wow. Yeah, thank God you did this when you did.
It was, oh my gosh. We would have lost that time period. We would have lost the history of that thing had we not done this when we did. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, cool. Let's roll this and meet some of these people. And anytime you'd like me to pause it, just ask me and I'll pause it and we can talk about it.
Okay.
We didn't see a snowmobile track anywhere back in 1960 or 61. There wasn't a track anywhere.
I remember when I was a state trooper, I was coming down Route 3, and I looked across, and I saw these lights going across the field. And I'd never seen one before, okay? And, so I stopped, and they come out basically right about where the clubhouse is now. First thing they said, "Are we doing anything wrong?" I said, "No." I said, "Looks like fun."
I don't know how we ever got the idea, other than the chamber didn't want to do it. So the junior chamber, the JCs ran it.
And Arthur Drake was also on the Senate at the time. And he kind of got the ball rolling to have Lancaster become named Snowmobile City and the Grand Prix of that week that we usually held the Grand Prix.
I think that story just needs to be told. That 61 sled right there, it was my sled, Bob Bottoms and I went to Cannon Mountain. They wanted to try one. Of course, you gotta realize these have no brakes. Bob says, bring that up that slope. Every time I go by it, I can picture where I was on it. I went up just as high as I could. Of course, it's steep. We turned around, and there's a huge rock in the middle of that, boulder. And I just barely made it by that. I got to the bottom, and the guy says, I don't want one of those things. You can't stop. Him and I, we lived beside each other, and we raced together. And that's the way we started up.
Yeah.
We snow machined together, and then I started messing around. I would get mine to go faster than his, so then we'd have to do it to his.
Well, Bob Fortin was probably one of the finest racers in New England. And when Timberland Machines shut their racing team down, he had won about every major race there was to win in New England.
That's all we did. We worked all week long on them to get through a weekend. If you could put a couple $100 in on a sled so you could run it for half an hour and have it stay together, you succeeded, So
Louis was Louis and Tim White, Butch and Johnny, and Louis was our mechanic. And he had a few little secret things that he'd do to engines that the guys from Timberland didn't have. They even tried to offer him a job if he'd come work for them.
A lot of them fool with just the engine, but the chassis itself, there's a lot of things in there that can be done to speed them up. We would change bogies, the suspension around springs. The wheels, like the bogie wheels, for instance, had chassis grease in them. Well, that chassis grease running in the snow, cold, it really stiffens up, and it takes a lot of power to turn the wheels. So what I would do is I'd clean them all out, clean the grease up, and then I'd fill them with a light oil. And just by doing that right there, you could pick up maybe a mile, 2 miles an hour.
I paid for my first machine by going back at night and cutting a hole through the crate and going in with this engine and putting it all in place before it was shipped out to a dealer.
Rubber boots. Obviously, we're looking at lots of wool layers. What do you have on?
Johnson pants, Johnson jacket.
The best you could buy. I like the idea of it. I got the offer. One day, Boston gave me a sled to run, so started going. Part of your lifestyle back then was you go to work, you come home from work, grab a quick bite to eat, maybe, and then you'd go and tear down the machine completely and get it assembled again by Wednesday so you could drive it Thursday and then head off for the weekend for the races. And a lot of times after the races were over, you know, I'm talking a period of in February or something, several people would get their snow machines out just after they get home from work and take a ride. In my case, or our case, we'd leave from Roberts Motors and go up Stebbins Hill, and we'd build a nice bonfire and stick the hot dogs in it and have whatever to wash it down. And, you know, it's just snow machining was fun back then. It was amazing.
We were a skidoo dealer. And then as it went on, and Roberts has got interested in racing, so Butch Roberts and Johnny Roberts, I had to build them machines. Tom McLaughlin, he also had a machine at one time that he was running.
Them old sleds too. I can remember my first race there. The windshields on them weren't kind of like flexible like that. They used to have a 1/4-inch plexiglass on them. And that first cross country over here, I launched right off with a truck stop there someplace between different levels of the field because you couldn't see it. In the snow, it was all the same color. Struck my head and rubbed my nose right up that big heavy windshield, just about pretty near severed the top of your head, you know.
Bill Doolin, I'm a 190, snowing hard. And I come out of the station, I saw a brand new set of skidoo tracks.
This guy here, Mike, he was the town police chief.
Yes.
Whitey Leonard. So this is what he's talking about here is when he was the police chief.
Nice. And I think we've got an image of him somewhere giving that award to
Villeneuve there when Jill was here in town. He had Whitey was the Grand Prix chairman that year, 76, I think it was. Yeah.
Yes.
And
I'm trying to find that real quick. I don't know if I actually will, but
Whitey was a big man. He was well over 6 feet. So quite a presence. So when Whitey spoke, people listened.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I'm having trouble finding that image, but we've all seen it because I've put that up several times. But yeah. Very big, very large man.
Oh, yeah.
Well, cool. Oh, we've got comments coming in. Let's take them real quick.
Okay.
Here we go. Mike and Midge, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you so much. There's Lena Smith. We appreciate that. James Whiteside, look at that snow. Yeah, we don't get snow like that anymore.
No, that's back when it snowed.
Yes. Oh, here we go. Is Lancaster, this is Alan Gove saying, is Lancaster in the future going to have races at the fairgrounds? I know you need a lot of cold weather to make ice.
Yeah, that's the problem this year. It's a good thing we didn't try to do the 60th Grand Prix reunion because this year would be the 60th. And we just didn't have enough cold weather to make ice.
Yes.
We need a millionaire to step in and put in a system like you have at hockey rinks.
Yes.
Where you can freeze the ground. And it didn't, it wouldn't make any difference what the temperature was. We could still make ice.
Control the environment. Yeah.
I'm putting the word out for multi-millionaires. If they really want to see racing in Lancaster, this is what we're going to need to do in the future.
Yes, a biodome kind of a thing. Yes, the winterized biodome. And then we've got Lena Smith saying that's good of her. I think she's referring to the woman who was making comments on camera. And she's also commenting about the people in that image and who were part of this project who are no longer with us. She's saying, may their souls rest in peace. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another comment, what a great video. And Todd McMillan saying, hi, Mike. Todd from Madoc, Ontario, Canada. Outstanding.
Wow.
Well, cool.
All
Any
right.
more on Whitey before we keep it rolling? Or
No, other than he was, I think he was a president of the Snowdrifters one year or a few years there, and he was heavily involved in the snowmobile, and this is why we got him on board to tell his story. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We'll keep it rolling.
Went down. When I was going down, the snow machine went the other way. So I turned around and followed him all the way up to Bill Doolan's house. Pulled in the ad, and I said, what in the world are you doing, Bill? He said, I went to get a pizza. Well, I gave him the rolls, and he gave me a slice of pizza.
Put snow the length of Lancaster on the sidewalk, at least a foot deep, so that they could be sure to have good enough snow to have a full parade.
If we went down the woods to cut some wood, do some trimming, we'd snowshoe down, lug the saw or the axe or whatever, and then when the snow machine come along, we made a little trailer. And my father wasn't too keen on snow machines until we figured out we could put a little trailer behind it and take the saw down the woods, and he thought that wasn't too bad.
I would much rather have an old sled. If I went back snow machining right now, I would really have the old sled. The next year was 1960 sleds came in, and I sold the 1960 sled to Herbert Vyron Pants at the Middlesill, which is in the museum down, Red Parks is, and that one is down there, the first two with wooden skis. The next 10 came down, which was on a, Brett Moran was hauling them on a trailer, not a trailer, a tractor, and stopped at Monahan's Golf, and Bill Fitch was in there at the time, old Bill, and Dick Monahan at the time said, you ought to own one of those things. So Bill bought one.
Yeah, they had a full-fledged band at the town hall, not the town hall, the community house. That's that band you see there playing. They had a dance, and they crowned the queen that year, the snowmobile queen, and everything else at the community house. So you'll see bits and pieces of that as it plays.
A few minutes ago, we were talking about Whitey Leonard. I did find that image of him giving the award.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
There we go. So it took a minute, but I did find it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
Sure thing.
Yeah, they used to have the Le Mans type start years ago. It used to, the machines were shut off, and the drivers had to stand, I don't know how many feet behind their sleds, and they had to run to their sleds, pull the pull cord, and take off. And because back then sleds were notorious for not starting on the first pull every time.
Yeah, so, that's a gamble.
If you had a good starting sled, you got a big jump. You know, sometimes you'd win the race, even if you didn't have the best sled, just because the thing started.
Yes.
Well, they did away with that.
There we go. That's the line start right there.
The Grand Prix style, European style Le Mans.
Yeah.
Start. Yeah.
And the guy in that dark sled, I think he's trying to push it to start it. In fact, let me back that up just a smidge, and we'll see if see how that plays out.
That's the Polaris.
Yeah.
They're all well-accomplished mechanics, automobile mechanics, essentially, heavy equipment mechanics, and they were young, and they put their skills to work on these new snowmobiles, and they rode them about every night of the week.
Well, the first thing you notice is a lot of snowmobiles. The town was very relaxed on enforcement of what snowmobiles could do at that time. You could ride on the sidewalks and not get in a lot of trouble. If the streets were snow covered, you could ride on those. One thing that the Grand Prix did have in their favor was the chief of police, which was Whitey Leonard, was very involved in the Grand Prix. So that helped the issue out. If we happened to have a chief that was not involved or not in favor of it, probably wouldn't have been so lax. But it did generate a huge amount of economy for the town of Lancaster, so most people were very acceptable for what went on. There was snow put in the roads done by the town highway crews to be able to have a parade down Main Street, which involved a lot of snowmobiles. There was a snowmobile queen that was chosen each year, and she usually led the parade. It was a pretty big deal for back then.
Yeah.
I think they did respect my position, and they sort of went behind the barns.
Yeah.
Cross countries, I remember Bobby Eastman, the first cross country we had, and it went across the river into Vermont, up around towards Granby, and it came down the power line. And I remember coming in, and geez, I was so tired. And I looked over and there's Bobby Eastman, he's just grinning. That was fun. The fun part was he came in a half an hour, 45 minutes before anybody else.
Wow.
And shortly after that, I read in a magazine that he raced from somewhere near Montreal to Ottawa on a cross country for Polaris. And he won that, and he won it by like 12 hours. It was an endurance run type thing. So, but really, Mike can tell you, and Midge and Claude, Timmy was a heck of a driver. We enjoyed our local teams, and some of the local teams, including ours. We won the Hiawatha Cup down in Laconia, which is one of the major national events. We also went to Lake Placid. We went to Bangor to see the big old Axe Man. Made a lot of trouble, and had a lot of fun.
One thing I was going to mention was the hazards of the crashes that we had. Tim mentioned it earlier, and it got to be, on one Sunday, it got to be kind of a horror show. And that particular Sunday that I'm thinking of, we had 7 trips to the hospital with the ambulance.
You could imagine how high up in the air you had to be. And then they put hay out there in front of it. I went right beyond the end of the hay when I landed. Never touched it at all. But luckily I could back down. My feet come out from under me. And that was probably
This guy
my most
right here
amazing
is
jump
going to
ever.
be
Bicentennial.
inducted. Bill Buckland.
Oh, wow, yes.
Before. He's going to be inducted this year in the Hall of Fame.
Nice.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd make mention of that. And
I think he's talking about the old snowmobile jump contest they used to have.
That's a famous photo of him. I told him that was the first freestyle when his feet were off the seat and all he had his hands on the handlebars. I said, Bucky, you just pulled the first freestyle snowmobile jump. He said, I think he tells it in here. I think he said he landed perfect. His feet were on the running boards when it came down, but it looked like he was totally out of shape. So, yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Oh, we've got a few comments that have come in. Let's see. Here we go. James Whiteside says, Midge, what did a sled set a guy back for in those days? What were they going for?
Yeah, they were probably the 16 horsepower models, 14, 16 horsepower models were probably going for around $900.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a fair amount of money back then too.
Yeah, you couldn't start a track for that today.
True. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And here we go. Ben Thomas says, if we cannot find a willing millionaire, maybe we could find a million willing racing fans. There we go. To build an enclosed environment
right
for racing.
Right.
And we could do it year round. You know, if it's enclosed, we could race year round.
Here's our problem, Mike. Everybody that's involved in this now is in their 70s.
True, yeah.
We need these, you know, back when the Grand Prix was first run back in 64 and all the way up through the 70s, those guys were in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And I dare say that when we did this last Grand Prix, the youngest guy was Shane Beatty, and he was 45.
Wow.
So we got to get these young people involved in this thing.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. That's the future of this.
Yeah. You know, if they want to get anything done, we're going to be gone in 10 years.
Yeah, it's true. The clock is seriously ticking.
Yeah.
And in another 10 to 20 years, this hobby is going to look very different because a lot of us will be gone, like you said.
That's right. And that's why it's important to get this stuff written down like we're doing now.
Yes, documenting this and keeping these stories alive, keeping these memories alive.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I like about this podcast. This can be a place where we all gather, people who have memories of that or people who are curious about that. These podcasts are a place where we can all gather and share information and stories. And
absolutely.
Definitely. And then one more comment. We've got Todd McMillan saying the Bonashare Cup was this weekend in Eganville, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how everything went up there.
Yes. Well, cool. Anything else before we continue the footage? Or
no, I think you can run it. I just thought I'd say, you know, a little thing about Bucky that he's going to be inducted this year.
Yes. Yep. Very cool. Well, cool. Yeah, we'll keep it rolling.
Get back down. My feet come out from under me. And that was probably my most amazing jump ever.
Bicentennial was in 1964. And Bob Allen and committee members of some sort, I forget when the original meeting was held, but he made the suggestion that they have a Grand Prix snowmobile race to cap off the bicentennial activities of 1964.
What's that?
69, 15,000.
You could be assured that people's heads would pick right up when you mentioned Lancaster.
Well, Lancaster in the wintertime is a sleepy little snow-covered town. And when the Grand Prix would come to town, it was just unbelievable. The amount of people, cars, traffic, just, you would never think that it would get to be such a big deal. When you know, 15,000 people coming to Lancaster in the middle of winter is unheard of. You know, the only time you ever saw that many would be for Lancaster Fair.
Because Timberland Machines introduced Skidoo in 1959 here in town. It was the first place in New England, I think, that had Skidoo. And it allowed a little extra time for the development of that type of competition locally, so that they were probably a little bit ahead of the game.
It was just, you could tell that something was going on in Lancaster. I'm not sure if you was flying over in a plane, you could look down and say there was something going on in Lancaster.
But traffic, it was backed up. I remember a couple times the governor couldn't make it, and the state police had a hard time getting through. And like Bob mentioned, that they had some dignitaries they had to get up there, and we had to get the state police to get them. But Route 3 is like the fair. There's no place to put them, so you just have to live with it and get them off the street and into the parking lot as quick as you could. We had plenty of help, the state police, and sheriff's department. We had some other the locals. And of course, if the weather was real bad, it was snowing, it created more problems. But as a general rule, the public acted very, very good.
How about that race you told about down in, what was it, Lewiston, on a mile-long track?
The horse track down there. Scarborough Downs.
Sprocket.
We were down there and they iced the track completely, just like this floor. And we knew we were going on ice, so we called Bombardier, and they sent down some bigger sprockets, longer chains to make it go. Well, I had an 800, and over that particular year, they had a speedometer up. I don't know why. I looked once going down the back there, I pinned it about 110.
Get stuff from Loisco Piston Company. So he gave me the address of the company. I had my wife write him a letter to see if they were interested in anything like that or could help. And he wrote me back a letter and said, send me an engine and I'll look at it. So I sent him a complete engine, and which they all tore it down, and he built me pistons.
It was dog eat dog. You could wreck the other guy who did it, you know. They didn't care. And I had started racing, but I used my own sled and paid my own expenses and bought all my own parts. Well, I got wrecked pretty good up in Colebrook, and I took the skis and everything else underneath my unit. So I come back and I said, that's the end of that. And of course, Timberlands at the time was benefiting by the advertisement and the racing that I was doing. And well, they wanted to know why I wasn't going to the next race. And I said, I just wrecked the machine. It cost too much to keep them fixed and not going to do it anymore. And that same day, they come back out with a program that said, we'll buy the machines, we'll furnish your uniforms, and you could race. And we kept the money, I believe.
Yeah, we can keep the money. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, here's a good thing that Mike, if it wasn't for the women, a lot of that stuff wouldn't happen.
Sure.
It was the women behind the scenes that made those guys look good.
Yes.
Just to let you know.
Sure. A lot of
We all know
volunteerism
that.
probably, and just being supportive, letting the guys go out and race. And
yeah. If they didn't like that, if they didn't like that sport and what the guys are doing, it probably never would have happened.
It's true.
So
it's true.
the getting the women on board was the key to happiness in the snowmobile racing scene.
Yes, for sure. We've got more comments coming in. We've got Pong by Atari. Tim A says, I'm so glad I found your channel. Brings back a lot of fond memories. I was a young kid in the 60s and 70s and love watching your show. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love that you watch it, for sure. Oh, and here's a good question. James Whiteside is wondering, is Timberland still in existence?
No, they went out of business, and a company by the name of Chadwick and Bayross came in, and they left, but now they're back. They built a new building up on North Main Street, and now they're back. But Timberland Machines folded up back in the mid 80s, I think it was. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Great company though.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely a legacy there.
Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. Keep it rolling?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Now, what did he just do there? Did he drop an empty beer bottle behind the paneling?
What happened was there was a painting or a picture on the wall in the motel room.
Yeah.
So they took the photo of the painting down, and they punched a hole in the wall, so they could drop their empty beer cans down there, and then they put the painting back up on the wall afterwards. There's another little well-kept secret in the racing world, was the fact that these guys used to take their engines off after the day of racing. They would take the engines off and take them into the motel rooms and rebuild them on the floor.
Yeah.
And sometimes they take the whole sled in.
Wow.
So
drag it right into the room.
Some of these motels weren't very happy after those guys left.
Yeah, I'll bet.
They'd leave an awful mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But because they made big money, the place would be booked in the wintertime, which it normally wouldn't be if it wasn't for the Grand Prix or any of those other races. So
sure,
it was sort of a catch-22. You know, they left a mess, but yet they left a lot of money too. So
Yeah, they made money on it at least. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, cool. So I backed it up just a little. We'll see if we can see him pop that bottle behind that fan
Yeah,
light
yeah.
one more time.
Yeah.
To me, when the Grand Prix was the biggest and best time of the year.
Speaking of motels, was this the original or
That's,
second owner of the Lancaster Motel?
His family built the motel.
Okay.
His dad, Tommy, his name is Norman McLaughlin Jr., Norman Thomas, but they always called him Tom. And his father, Norman, and his mother, Catherine, bought the land that the Lancaster Hotel was on. That burned, I think, in 1946, 1947. There was a huge hotel on that site, and it burned. So the McLaughlins bought the property, and they're the ones that built the motel, and they ran it right up until Norman and Catherine decided to retire, and then their son Tom took it over. This guy here took it over, and then
he would have been
ran
the
it.
owner of the motel during the heyday, correct? The
So
60s and 70s?
Yeah, sort of towards the end, I think, more towards the end. Tom was involved. It was a family operation. Tom was involved in the motel with his parents, and Sally and Mike Beatty were involved with it too. Mike actually worked for them for a while. You know, when he and Sally first got married, he worked at the motel, and it was a family deal.
Yeah.
And so, Tommy here ran it until he retired, and then of course, he sold it.
Yeah.
But he used to help at the Grand Prix every year. Tom did, and did a lot for the community. The motel was always the hub of the snowmobile racing scene. Whenever the Grand Prix came to town, that was the headquarters. As we've always mentioned, the Lancaster Motel was the hub of this whole deal, and the McLaughlin family was they were really involved with the whole thing. And Tom was on board from the very get-go. And Tom used to race.
Yes.
He raced for Roberts Motors team, and in any race, I think he raced Polaris. I think Polaris Factory came with 3 extra sleds, and he grabbed one year. So,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of the Lancaster Motel, let's show them a little love.
There they are. That's
a little love on the screen.
Art Deco logo right there.
Yes. And here's some information on how to reach them. And speaking of Art Deco, they're trying to they've refurbished the entire motel, but they're trying to keep the mid-century vibe alive. Yeah, it's all in a mid-century theme, Art Deco mid-century theme, and it looks wonderful.
You would swear you're stepping into 1956.
Yes, it's like a step back in time.
Yeah,
everything's new and polished and modern, but at the same time, it's got a retro feel to it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, they get retro furniture and all the fixings and everything to keep it mid-century.
Yes.
So
and it's contrasted by modern Wi-Fi and all the things that you would expect in a modern motel. But it's a wonderful balance between the two.
Yes,
absolutely. And the current owners are still very friendly to the snowmobile community. They've been very good friends to you and I personally, as well as to all of our history projects that we do, and modern snowmobilers. They're still they understand the history where the motel is part of that history.
That motel could not have been purchased by 2 nicer people.
It's true. And 2 people who are more dedicated to understanding the snowmobile history and keeping that alive, and being a part of that community. And so we encourage you, if you're ever going through Lancaster, whether it's for snowmobiling or just passing through, or leaf peeping in the fall, please consider staying with our friends at the Lancaster Motel. You couldn't ask for better friends, like I said, on a personal level, and also friends to the snowmobile community. It just it doesn't get better than that. So if you want to stay with people who appreciate and understand snowmobiling, there's no better place, and we ask you to please patronize them.
That's right.
And if you do, please mention that you saw them on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Cool deal. So keep this rolling.
Sure.
All right.
I mean, it was better than Lancaster Fair because you had all these snowmobile people, and of course I love snowmobiling, and I still do. And it was just so many people that we would get to come to that affair that just, and like at the motel, the dining room. I mean, our dining room during the wintertime was dead. Grand Prix weekend, it was full.
Now that race was held behind the old Timberland machine building, or behind what is now McDonald's. That was held there for that was the first race, and it was kind of Bob Bottom's idea, and Bob is the one that gave it the name Grand Prix.
They were like my heroes, local guys that I knew. They were 10 or 15 years older than me. I saw them quite frequently, like I say, at the golf station. And they were big names for a while in snowmobile racing. They put Lancaster on the map.
Well, it was scary as far as I was concerned because of the speed back then that I thought was so fast, and I guess it's just women are probably more prone to worry about things like that. But I can remember thinking, I just hope nobody gets hurt today, you know, just because to us it was really fast. And now I realize how slow it was, but I do remember the fear factor of somebody getting hurt. And when you're working on something like that, you own a part of it, and it's like if something happens, you feel that everybody had a little bit of responsibility for that happening, and that always stuck in my mind.
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
might get
that amount of people and stuff they're brought in there, and all the factory racing teams, and it was, I don't know.
The place was packed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Motels, everything around. You couldn't get a room anymore.
Yeah.
And, no, there was. I guess the big thing is that there are factory teams coming in, like the Yada Cat team stuff, you know.
The whole Roberts Motor Sales, as well as Timberland Machine, got involved in the Grand Prix quite seriously. My wife, and we always had the kids in the parade, and we'd make a float and do this and that. But mostly, and Rod was right, the first races were held, and it was mostly just you go in there with what you had and shoot down the airstrip, and whoever got down there and back first was the winner. There was no ovals, there was no nothing. And it just kind of grew from there. We had one thing I was very, very proud of is the whole town got involved. The fire department, they would volunteer their help in their water trucks. The town crews would get the graders out and grade and smooth, and the town manager would get into it in every way he could.
I think the one that sticks out in my mind the most is the year that we put the salt on the ice. Because on Saturday we put that salt down and we were champs. And on Sunday when the sun came out we were chumps. So I think that was our biggest memory and our biggest disaster. But the event still went off fine, and everybody was happy when they left. They might have been a little dirty, but they were happy.
So in case someone's wondering about that, what's behind that as far as why they would put salt down, and how did it benefit when the weather was cold?
It was icy. It was cold. It was very cold. That was actually the year that Claude Hebert broke the telephone pole off.
Wow.
It was 1969, and Saturday was below zero. And it had rained. Well, you know how years ago we would have a cold snap between Christmas week and New Year's, and all through January it'd be below zero, and then you had the January thaw. Well, the Grand Prix always fell on the first weekend in February, so it usually came right after the thaw was over with. Well, during the thaw, it rained. And then it got cold again, so that track up there was just glare ice.
Glare ice.
And there were a lot of sleds with cleated tracks. It was out of Cat, Polaris, Motorski, all had cleated tracks. And if they hadn't done anything, the Skidoo would have been a route for the rubber track sleds, because the cleated tracks, those things would have been just going around in circles.
Yeah. So
they opted to put, because you can't put sand and gravel down because of the slide rails.
Yeah.
So, so they opted to put down salt, and the salt actually it was gritty enough on the ice so everybody stuck, and it seemed to work fine. And
More of a
then Sunday,
textured surface.
yeah, and early Sunday morning, it was still okay because it was still very cold Sunday morning, and that's when Claude broke the telephone pole off. But later that afternoon, the sun came out, and it got up into the 40s, and that salt started to work, and it was nothing but mud. I think you
What a
saw the
mess.
photo. You've probably seen the photo of Paul Lamontagne with his face was just covered
Yes.
in mud and his goggles.
I have
That
seen
was
that.
the year.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was
That was
everything
part of
was
that.
just mud.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it was a learning curve, you know.
Yes.
They learned not to put salt down ever again.
A valuable lesson was learned.
Valuable lesson there. So, but that's what Mike was talking about.
Sure.
Yeah. So
we've got comments coming in. We've got Reese Fleury asking if that hole is still in the wall.
I don't think that was the Lancaster Motel, because that was Tom McLaughlin that actually put the beer bottle in that hole in the wall, and he was
Gotcha.
the owner of the Lancaster Motel. So I think they were probably at another place.
Gotcha.
This is
Gotcha.
probably over in Bangor or somewhere else. And
Sure.
who knows if maybe the hole was already there, and that's why they put a painting up.
Yes.
I'm not going to accuse those guys of actually putting a hole in the wall, because that could have you could have been there, and they just happened to discover it.
Have some fun with it. Yeah.
So yeah, and they just had some fun with it. But
Sure.
no, that wasn't the Lancaster Motel.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now we've got another comment that's come in. This is James Spranger. He was on the other night, Thursday night, with his twin brother, John Spranger Jr. And he's
right.
making a comment. He says, the reason I didn't talk much Thursday night is because I have Parkinson's and I got my vocals. And we totally understand about that, James.
Yeah,
And it was wonderful to meet you. We really had a good time getting to know you and your brother. And that was a lot of fun. So we appreciate your coming on the other night, James.
Yeah.
Cool deal. And for filling us in on that. We appreciate that.
Oh, and Mike Beatty, did you notice when he was talking, he looked like he had Bell's palsy?
Yes.
It wasn't that. He had a tumor in his neck removed, and when they took the tumor out, they actually cut the part of the nerve that controls the facial muscles on that side of his face. So
that's what
that was unfortunately that was a permanent. It created the drooping of one side of his face, which is permanent.
Gotcha.
And I think this was done in like 2010, and 2 years later, Mike passed away. So that's how close it was to.
Wow.
Yeah. Mike.
It's good that you got these interviews with them.
Oh yeah, and Tim here is gone. Timmy White's gone here.
Yeah.
I can probably tell you who is still left easier than I can tell you who's gone.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. So.
And then we've got another comment that's come in. We've got Midnight Rider saying, "What amazing footage! Hats off to Mike, Midge, and everyone who helped put this video together. It's a true piece of history." He says, "Mike, are you and Midge going to be at the 2nd through 4th of August, at the Duluth National Show?" I doubt I'm going, but I don't want to say no for sure. But
yeah,
how about
I don't
you,
think
Midge?
I can make it.
Yeah. Same here. I'd love to do it, but I doubt it's going to happen. I would love
that's
to.
Quite a travel. That's quite a distance.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyone who happens to be going to that, if you're able to get some footage, some cell phone footage, we would love to share it on the podcast for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah, please do so.
And what we do ask, if you do that, I'm going to put myself full screen for a moment, and you'll see why. If you're getting cell phone footage, please hold your camera horizontal like this for a wide shot. It's very difficult for me to work with vertical footage.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're taking any kind of footage, please hold your camera horizontal like that for a wide shot. It makes it a lot easier for me to work with. And let me get the shot that we had. There we go.
Yeah,
we've got a few more comments coming in. And James Whiteside says times were so different back then. Everyone who was involved back then has to have wonderful memories. They were so lucky. Oh, it was a wonderful time.
Yeah. It was a brand new sport.
Yes. Oh, and here's a question. This is right up your alley, Midge. What is the history of the Gulf station you speak of, Midge? I know you have a personal connection to that. This is from Reese Fleury.
Yeah, the Gulf station, my uncle bought that in 1953. Gulf, there was Whitney Motors was in there. they sold Rambler. I think a Rambler, or maybe was it Pontiac? I can't remember. Anyway, Whitney Motors had a car dealership in there, and Golf wanted to sell that building, and Whitney didn't want to pay the price. So Whitney moved out back. They bought an old hay barn out back and turned it into a dealership. And my uncle purchased the Golf station from Golf. And so he owned the building. It wasn't owned by Golf. He owned the building. And he opened that up in 1953. And he ran that Golf station until 1988. He passed away in 88. Wow. And he was in the process of actually selling the station to C.N. Brown at the time, just before he passed away, unfortunately.
Wow.
So I ended up, I cleaned our personal tools and everything out of the building in 1988, and my aunt was able to sell the place. And yeah, but he operated that for 35 years, and I worked for him for over 20. He had a Polaris dealership there.
And isn't there a story related to?
Well, that's where all these guys hung out. Every single one of these guys that you see in this video hung out at the Golf station. That was the place that all the gearheads used to hang out. Timmy White here, you see, Mike Beatty. They all built stock cars out of there. They used to work on their snowmobiles there, and that was the hub for all of the gearheads in the town of Lancaster, Dick's Golf Station.
Yes, and I think when Bob Eastman was in town racing, he would use that as his shop to.
Bob, Polaris used that for their race shop, absolutely. And Bob Fortin, the great Bob Fortin, used to stop in there every day. He used to see Bob every day. They were like my older brothers, actually.
Nice.
And Bob Martin used to stop in there all the time, and it was really something.
That's
and
cool.
Dick would not allow drinking. He never would allow drinking there. So the wives did not mind if those guys hung out at Dick's.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice. Now we've got a few more comments. A great show as always. Good job, Mike and Midge. We appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And Jeffrey Patton says, I won some races at Weedsport, New York that turned into mud. So he knows what you were talking about or what they were talking about in the video.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. So we've got plenty more to see here. Let's keep it rolling. And we do have to be finished by the top of the hour. We've got plenty of time, but I do want to keep it moving. But yeah, let's continue.
Year, I don't remember what year it is, that we had in 3 and 4, coming out of 4, they had cut a slot on the bank to get into the parking lot. For some reason, I don't remember just what that was all about, but they had a slot, and I know that when we had our meeting before the races started, they told everybody that don't ride the banks high in 3 and 4 because they had that slot cut. You had to stay down. When you came out of 3 and coming into 4, up the straight, you had to stay down low. Well, I was right behind this gentleman, don't remember now who it was, and he was way up high, and he hit right into this slot. And when it did, it just throwed him right off his machine. He reached out and he grabbed a hold of what was the back handles of it. And what it did is I had cut right down, and it pulled him right straight in front of me, and bang. I got him right in the midsection with my skis. So, of course, I could just hear him moan, and it just rolled him off to one side. I went up as far as Tenny Whiteout, and I told him, I said, I just run over this guy down here. I think he's hurt bad. So that stopped everything. He went down. And to make a long story short, he ended up breaking 6 ribs, punctured 1 lung. But he came out of everything all right. He was laid up for quite a while, 6 months or so. But I know I had called and talked to him so that he had got through all of that. But, that's an era that stuck in my mind. And then I think one of the last years, and I think probably was the final year for me, I got run over in number 3 there with an Arctic Cat. I can remember I got somebody run into the side of me and got me sideways, and then my machine flipped over, and then it just kind of took off, and there I laid. And just as I was getting my head tipped up to see what was going to happen, I could see this Arctic Cat. Of course, they had cleats and everything on years ago, and I could see him coming, and all I did is I laid back, tipped my head back, he had a helmet on, and he went directly right over me, clunk, 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 and I set up after he went by, and I'm like, oh, God, I guess I'm all right.
I remember Bobby Fortin, and I remember Billy Buckland, and they were flying over those things and going crazy. So we were all in different classes, of course, but so I was in one of the slower classes. And I had a pretty good machine and I was cooking pretty good, but all of a sudden I hit a hump sideways, and when I did, I flipped over to the right and I caught it with my right leg, but my handlebar went into snow. So when I brought it back up and goosed it to go up over the next hill, I went over backwards and the machine took off, and I watched it and watched it. And I said, oh no, I hope nobody's in the way, or I hope there's no car in the way. And that thing flew, geez, a good 30, 40, 50 feet anyway, and then it disappeared. And I didn't see it again. So I walked over there through the snow, and I looked over the fence to see where it might be, and it landed right square on an empty trailer. And of course, when it landed, the throttle disconnected, you know, it went off. So it never really hurt my sled, didn't hurt a car. It just landed like a pancake on that trailer. And I said, wow. Oh my God.
Too bad that wasn't on video.
Canadians come down from Valcourt, and they had some really hopped up machinery. They had, instead of a two-cycle Rotax engine on them, they had a Honda four-stroke engine. They had two of those set up with Honda engines.
Remember those Hondas?
And one of the events that we had was a jump. It was a ramp there. It was a jumping competition. And the Frenchmen come down through there with those Honda engines. They were going to show us what snowmobile is all about. They come down through with those Hondas up over the ramp and never let off the throttle. And when they were in the air, the sled was just screaming. When it landed, it snapped the drivetrain on both of them. They packed up the sleds. They said to us, they said, this is nothing but a farmer's race. And they headed back to Valcourt.
You froze. Your feet were just like ice. You could stomp and you could do whatever, but your feet were extremely cold. Your hands were cold. Your face was cold. But you had to stand there because it was just an exciting part of being in Lancaster at the time, and you just couldn't miss one single second of it.
Well, back then, I think by that time, I think you spend the whole day, and of course you get up early in the morning. Your stomach is churning. You're all excited, nervous, and you run up there at 7 o'clock in the morning. Of course, it's cold. You know, and the outfits that we had were good for those days, but nothing like we had today for outfits to wear. And you spend all day, 10, 12, 14 hours at the racetrack, and you had to be aware of what was going on. Nobody came running around and begged you to get out in your class. You got one call, and you had to be there, or you missed it. You know, they didn't come looking for you. So you're right there waiting, and you listen to the loudspeakers or anybody talking. You was paying attention so that you didn't miss it. So and then you get through all your racing all day long. I'll tell you, as a young fella, I don't think I was looking to party. I think I was headed home going to bed.
And of course, and I was on the committee where we would go up there, like the Mac Garage. John Roberts owned the Mac Garage, and he would donate several of his dump trucks, and we would go up there at night, get 5 or 6 guys, take the trucks and go up there at night and go round and round and round that to pack the snow down, to get it packed down and make a hard surface for the race. And that was, you know, just part of, you had to do it, or you wouldn't have a good track.
Any close calls?
Oh yeah, you would get run over once, not run over, just had to get beat up a little bit, but luckily I never broke anything. Someone did.
You rode the big ones, didn't you, Bob?
Yeah, near the end of it. But at the beginning of it, we had some 250s, 340, 440, and then the 650s and the 800s.
What was it like grabbing the throttle on an 800?
You want to hang on.
I had this 26-mile cross-country race, and
well, man, a few
couple of local
words.
drivers that were at the Timberland would be out every day practicing on that cross-country race. Well, Mike and I discussed it, and I said, I think that's kind of unfair. I'd like to see our guys win it, but I really, you know, the people from out of town aren't having they're not having a chance to practice. So we should keep it fair for everybody. Bob Bonham says, well, don't you want our guys to win? Yeah, I said, yes, I do. In fact, at the time that I was working for him, I thought my job might be in jeopardy, but it wasn't. But anyway, we get up Saturday morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and Mike and I went out and changed the cross-country course. And I guess it was quite a shock to the boys that had been practicing on it, because they come around the corner like, whoa, what is this?
And they had pulp. We'd up in Phillipsbrook, and then piles were 30 feet high, and we'd go right up the top of them, and we bring flares to cook beans in. And I'll never forget the time we were up there. Curly says, geez, I think I put a hole in that can. And boy, they all tasted sulfur.
I think to me, I heard, listen to all the other fellows there, was the people we got to know. Friendship that lasted a long time.
Whoa, right in that fence. It's like one of Butch's sleds, too. Black tape on it. This is Pittsburgh races, cross-country race. And we jumped to Manchester in '66. There's the gang.
Brother and I used to have a racing team with Louis Cassidy was our main mechanic. And after Johnny and I got racing, my brother John, I was a chairman this one particular year, and he was a spotter on turn 1 and up on a tower. And he radioed down to me, he said, "Get somebody up here. My knees are shaking so bad I can't do anything." And that particular day it was very windy and 20 below, and to stand there for 3 or 4 hours, it was tough.
But for a 2-day event, that was the biggest crowd that had ever been drawn, and probably ever has.
Ever drawn to Lancaster in a single day?
Yes.
I did a lot of the work when Mike was the chairperson, paperwork and that type of thing. I remember one thing that we used to have to do that I really, really did not like was to go around to all the people and ask for donations, or did they want to sponsor trophies, and that was a part that I always had to do and didn't enjoy. But that, you know, there was the paperwork part of it, and then we also did the concession stand some. I remember working the concession stand. I was just telling Mike that I remembered that we brought a concession stand down from the Speedway one winter when there wasn't a place to serve food, and we used that. It was like a mobile trailer that we could move, and we moved it down and used that for the weekend. And I worked in that quite often because they start with an empty field and end up with this big race. I mean, you know, there's absolutely no facility there until they start putting it together.
The entire town, every business, every private individual, all volunteered their time. Nobody got paid. Nobody got anything other than the reward of seeing a successful Grand Prix go off. That made everybody proud.
I think that was the year that I finally said, you know, I got a family started, just got myself a house, hadn't been married terribly long. I said, I think maybe I better call this quits.
Then we had 3 bad years in a row. One was too much snow, one with ice, and one was too cold. Well, those 3 in a row kept, I mean, when it's 20 below 0 in the middle of the day, you can't expect people to come sit on a snowbank and watch snow. So we lost, you know, the crowd, we lost the people, and then people lost interest. Then we had one year it was almost bare ground, icy, and it wasn't good racing conditions.
That's right. We had the best snow machine, and the best years of snow machine that we had.
What do you mean?
Compared today, there's no fun out there today, right? You know, you might just well sit home.
Hated to see it go, but we ended up not enough help. And everybody got kind of, well, they weren't interested anymore because everybody had worked on it so long, so many years, and with no new blood, you know, it just went downhill and finally had to stop.
When it finally ended, how did you react to that? How did it make you feel?
I want to cry. Really. It was, there'd been a lot of work going on it. And why did we do it? We did it, I guess, it was a kind of a fun thing, and we just wanted to put on a good show. I guess there wasn't much money made out of it because we gave it all back for the prize money.
Well, stop it right here, Mike. Back it up to Bob Clark, if you can.
Right here?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, Bob is the first person that we inducted in the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame in 2017. We went by alphabetical order. And so his last name, Clark, it was, it was low on the alphabet. So it turned out that Bob was the first one we inducted because of that. But when we decided to call that the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, Bob called me up a couple of times, and he had a problem with us calling it racing. And he says, boy, he said, what about the promoters? I said, well, if the promoters were involved in racing, if they promoted racing, then they can be. Well, I don't think don't put racing in there. Just call it the Eastern Snowmobile Hall of Fame. He said, I don't think you should put the racing in. I says, Bob, it's all about racing. I said, we don't care how many times Paul Doherty went up into the Allagash. This is about racing.
Yeah.
So anyway, he says, well, he said, I don't think you're going to be able to put promoters in there if you call it racing. So anyway, we're there, and we blindsided Bob when nobody ever told him that he was going to be inducted. The rest of them all knew that they were going to be inducted except for Bob. But Bob shows up, and he says, where do you want me to sit? And I says, well, geez. I said, why don't you sit in one of these chairs right here in the front beside these other people? And I says, Muriel, I said, you can sit beside Bob right here. Because I think Muriel knew. I think we told Muriel and all of the other people that came in his party. But Bob was the only one that didn't know. So I'm up there announcing, and I told the story. I told that same story. You've got that on DVD there.
Yeah.
And I said, to prove that we're going to induct promoters into this Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, I says, the first person we're going to induct is a promoter. I says, Mr. Bob Clark. And Bob comes up and he whispers in my ear. He says, what did he say? He says, I'm going to have a word with you after this. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, yeah. Bob was a definite pioneer in the sport, for sure.
Yes. And wasn't he one of the board members of the Hall of Fame?
He was, yeah. Right up until he couldn't do it anymore. Yeah, Bob, he developed Parkinson's and dementia, and he fought hard, but he lost his battle here last spring.
Wow, that's sad news.
Yeah. So, yeah, he and Bruce Dunham both about the same time.
About the same time. That's right. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, yeah, the only one left out of the original four that we inducted is Bob Martin.
Bob Martin, yes.
Yeah. Conrad Rollins is gone, and Bruce Dunham is gone, and Bob Clark's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable, isn't it?
Time catches up with all of us.
Yeah. So
now, while we're talking here, I know we've got until the top of the hour. I want to try to use some of that. I'm trying to find an induction, the induction of Ed Stabb, since we were talking about him earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm searching while we're talking, to see if I can find it, because I'd like to play it. And if you want to continue talking, I'll search while you're talking.
Yeah, or just continue playing this maybe, and
yeah, because we've got the credits. Let me play that, and then we'll give you a chance to talk some more.
Okay.
You love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did a pretty good job with that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
good that you preserve all of those memories and all of those
yeah,
faces and
yeah, yeah. And it was nice that those guys were willing to sit down and talk about, not a lot of people, and I'm one of them. Just not trained to sit down and talk about things like that,
sure.
So yeah, it was fun.
Oh, for
They're
sure.
all friends of mine. So
Yes.
yeah, and so they I guess they did it for me.
Yeah, that's a nice favor.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, as it turns out, it immortalizes them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And their families each got a DVD. The ones that are on there all got DVDs.
Nice.
Yeah. And the old guy in the beginning that was wearing the Johnson clothes like they used to wear before they started coming out with snowmobile suits.
Yes, the wool.
That's Mary Vashaw. We just lost Mary, 96 years old.
Really?
Yeah, just this last summer.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
do you
Mary,
remember what year we inducted Ed Stab?
2018.
That's what I was thinking, but all I find is an interview I did with him, and I can't find the actual induction. And I know I saved it as a clip.
Yeah, I think 2018.
Huh. All right. Well, I'll keep
Yeah.
looking.
Yeah.
And if you want to just talk about whatever memories you have while I search for this.
Yeah. Well, talking about Ed Stab, we were Shane Beatty and I in 2013 were talking about putting on the Grand Prix. We were green at doing this. We hadn't done a race since 1977, the last Grand Prix that the town held. So, and with a lot of the original players that passed away, we didn't have a lot of people to bounce off from on what to do, and we wanted to do it right. We didn't. This was the Grand Prix we're dealing with, so it wanted to be done right. So, the Great North Woods Vintage Derby was going on up in Colebrook and Pittsburgh. It was a group that were doing vintage racing up there, so we were in talks with them. That kind of fell through. They wanted a little bit too much money, so we just couldn't afford. And they would have done a good job, there's no question, but we just couldn't afford that, so we kind of gave up on having them do it. And all of a sudden, we were sitting at Shane Beatty's one night in his office over at his house for the meeting, and a whole bunch of the people that were on the committee, Grand Prix committee, were over there. And we had Ed Stab on the phone, a speaker in the middle of the table. One of the committee members was looking on the computer one day, and he just came across racing over in Boonville, New York. And he found out that the guy that was putting that race on over there, his name was Ed Stab. So he called Ed, and he wanted to know if he would come on and talk to the committee some night about how to put on an ice race. And Ed said, "Sure, I'll give you guys a hand." He says, "I'll try to give you some pointers." So he's on the phone, and he's telling us what they do over there and how they lay ice down and a few of the other things that needed to be done, to put a race on. And finally, Kenny Bolins, who's the guy that found Ed, Kenny was about ready to button up the meeting, and Kenny blurted out, he said, "Ed," he said, "Look," he said, "would you be willing to come over and help us put this race on?" And Ed said, "Yeah." He says, I'd give you guys a hand. Now, bear in mind, Ed lives 6.5 hours away. and it's not interstate.
Exactly.
If anybody's been over in the Adirondacks in New York,
winding, the long and winding road, just like off a Beatles album.
There's not a 10-foot straight stretch over there.
It's true.
So it's a windy, twisty, and so is Vermont, and so is New Hampshire, and it's not an easy travel, and especially in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
Well, Ed said, sure. He says, I'd give you guys a hand. So Kenny asked him, he says, Ed, he said, what would you charge us to do this? Ed says, $2,800. Well, come to find out, the $2,800 was what it would cost for the insurance. In other words, Ed Stab is coming over for free.
Yeah.
And he brought his whole troop over.
Yeah,
he brought his staff over, and the only thing we had to do was we got him 3 rooms at the motel. We put them up at the motel. They asked for that. And other than that, we paid for the insurance. And we got the world's best promoter for free.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then he not only did it that time, he did it 2 other times. He did it in 2015 and 2017.
Yes, Ed Stab in the middle on the screen here that we're talking about.
There's a reason why Ed is a sizable man, because that needs room for that big heart.
Oh yes,
that's why.
Exactly.
Because there's just you need to have a heart that big. You need a lot of man there.
Yes, to hold all of that, to contain all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and building on what you're saying too, he's the most humble guy. You consider how accomplished he is, and that he's probably the greatest promoter in the East. He just, to walk up to him and chat, he's just a regular guy. There's no pretense or no arrogance or any of that.
Yeah. No. And, the great ones are always the ones that are humble.
It is true.
You ever noticed that?
Yes. And I did find his induction. So this is nice. This is a perfect segue or perfect setup to his induction. Just take me a minute to cue it up here, and we'll watch him not only get inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame in 2018, but also I was able to catch him for an interview after, and we're going to have that as well. So without any further ado, let's watch Ed Stab be inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, our good friend.
Edward Stab, racer promoter, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2018. In 1968, 12-year-old Ed Stab begged Agway owner and Skidoo dealer Fay Cavlin to please let him help work on the machines. He was so convincing, Cavlin let him. In 1971, Ed joined the Explorer Post 505, whose sponsor was the USSA. His troop sold food and many of the USSA sanctioned races. Ed began racing snowmobiles in 1974 and a 1974 Polaris 340, and again in 1975. He co-owned the 1976 Mercury 250 Snow Twister and helped sponsor a later rider to drive it, and it took many first-place trophies that year. Ed began grooming trails and repairing rental sleds for the Northwest Passage Hotel. It was here that he rented the workshop, calling it the Outpost, started selling used snowmobiles, and was a parts unlimited dealer until 1981. In 1979, Ed built his first racetrack at the Northwest Passage Hotel. He was not only involved in putting the race on, he also raced to second place finish. He saw the first New York Vintage Sled race in 2002, was a member of the board in 2003, took over as chairman of the New York Vintage Sled Racing from 2004 to 2015. Under Ed's leadership, over racing enjoyed a resurgence in interest not seen since the 1970s. Ed ran 8 100-mile endurance races on several New York lakes for 7 years. Ed Stab was named Grand Marshal for the 2011 Boonville Snow Festival. He hosted his first vintage snow at Boonville, New York in 2005 with 176 entries. Ed was host of the first national show at Boonville in 2010 with 254 entries. He was a judge at the national show at St. Anne's, Michigan in 2012. He hosted the second national show in Boonville, New York with almost 500 entries. Was a judge at Midland, Michigan National Show in 2015. Ed helped at the National Show in Lancaster, New Hampshire in 2016. Ed was key in the enormous success of the 2014 50th Lancaster Grand Prix reunion race. He brought his entire staff, all working pro bono for this and every Grand Prix since.
I'm going to keep it short. It's been a pleasure to come up here to New Hampshire to put on the races that we do. The credit that you guys are giving me is very nice, but you know, when you run an organization like we have, it's not just me. It's my helpers, my track directors, all the guys that come and help me put on these races. Without them, you can't do it. I mean, the 100-mile races, I had to have somebody go out and build those tracks. You had to have somebody sitting out there all day, making sure guys didn't cut corners, you know. That's a long day of sitting there. You can't do it without help, and you gotta have good help. The flagmen to stay out there all day and flag the races and stuff. The girls to sit out there and score the racers. They sit out in the cold to watch those guys. If it's 30 below, that's where they're sitting, you know. So, like I say, I'm honored to have this, but I want everybody to know that it takes a lot of people to run something like this and keep it going. And Midge, Paul, the only thing I can say about Paul, he has a good shirt.
Every spoke wheel needs a hub.
My name is Ed Stabb. I'm from Boonville, New York. I run the northern division of the Vintage Snowmobile Racing. I put on the races up here in Lancaster, New Hampshire. I've been involved in racing for 15 years. I think that this Hall of Fame is a great thing. It recognizes the people that are involved, but you also have to recognize the people that help us, because without the people that help us, we wouldn't have it. I started racing back in the 70s, and then I realized it was a little too big to race, so I decided I would start promoting and putting on races. We put on 100-mile races, we put on cross-country races, and we put on the ice ovals.
Yeah, here's to our good friend Ed Stabb.
Yeah.
They don't get better than that.
No, and Ed, he'll ship anything you say good about Ed right towards other people.
Yes.
Do you notice how he changes the subject and he that's the promoter in him, because he promotes everybody else but himself.
It's true, and to echo that, I've tried to get him on the podcast many times, and he'd rather be behind the scenes, than be out front.
No, he's runs unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a very selfless man, very wonderful man.
It's
and again, this is you and I with him yesterday, having a photo opportunity with him.
Yeah, Ed's health is not that well either, and but it's not stopping him.
Yeah,
and
he's still
it won't stop.
Yeah, he doesn't stop him from promoting events and going to events. Like you said, he drove over 6 hours to attend the Lancaster.
He does dialysis 3 days a week. Dialysis. It takes 4 hours, I think, every time he goes to have a dialysis done for his kidneys.
Yes.
So he was in a bad wreck when he was a young fellow, like 16 or 17. He was in a bad wreck, and this is the ongoing thing that he's had to deal with for the rest of his life. And it's now it's kind of, it's at that stage right now. So he's doing dialysis, but it's not going to stop him.
No,
and it never will.
No, and I got to give him credit too, because in my day job, I'm associated with a lot of people who are going to dialysis, and at the end of the day, it really takes a lot out of them.
It takes a lot out of them. Yeah.
And to continue
he did
being
dialysis probably Friday, and it was there Saturday.
Yeah, and to still be have a full schedule with all of his vintage activities, it's really impressive.
Yeah,
and we've got tons of comments coming in. Did you have another thought on that, or?
No. Let's see what they say.
Sure. Our good friend Rob Hilditch is in the house saying great history.
Hey, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You like Rob?
Absolutely. Rob has been very kind to us.
Yes.
I
Yes,
wish I
he
had
has.
that clip. Wish I had that clip handy of where he sent us some hoodies.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got the hoodie.
Yes, he's a dear
I
friend.
wore that hoodie, by the way, Rob, up in Pittsburgh at the vintage show up there.
Nice.
So everybody saw it.
Nice. Put it on display.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Alan Gove says, great show tonight, gentlemen. A lot of good history. Never gets old listening to this. Well, we appreciate that. Ben Thomas says, awesome job sharing and the history of vintage snowmobiles in Lancaster. Well, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Team Baywick says, amazing history direct from the individuals. You guys did a great job with this show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. James Whiteside says, Midge, do you still ride? And if so, what brand do you ride? Still Bombardier.
Have you got the photo of me on that sled, Mike?
Not handy.
No.
I wish I did.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of where that image is. Yeah, I don't
know.
No,
actually, I've got a vintage Polaris that was given to me when I retired from the Ford garage in 2016. It's a 1977 440 TX. Because my uncle and I sold Polaris for 14, 15 years here in Lancaster. And so I'm kind of a Polaris guy. And so they gave me that. And then I had Mark Belanger turn it into a 1975 PDC clone. So it looks like a race sled.
I'm searching frantically for that too.
Yeah.
Because I'm dying to pop that on the screen. We all need to see that.
Yeah.
And it's not handy.
It's in your photo gallery somewhere.
Yes. Where did I? Let me see if this. No. Yeah, it's not happening. I'm sorry about that.
No, yeah, it's okay.
But we still have plenty more comments. Let me go back to that. So yes, also someone saying great job. Thank you for that. Ben Thomas says, I believe Ed Stab was inducted in 2020. It was 2018. But
2018,
yes.
Yeah. 2020 was the first outdoor ceremony, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got too big to have inside, which is a nice problem to have.
That's right.
It grows every year. It gets a little bigger and better every year.
Yeah, we had it at the fairgrounds.
Yes.
Last year. Yeah.
Yeah, we're constantly refining it and making it bigger and better. Oh, in case you haven't heard in previous episodes of our podcast, Midge, our friend Midge here on the screen, is the founder of the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. And he and I have collaborated on that and a bunch of other things. And yeah, he's doing a great job with that. Reese Fleury says the trip through Vermont is the worst. Yeah, when you're coming from upstate New York, definitely.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey Patton says, I raced at Boonville, New York in the 70s and ice a lot, and it was always super cold. Yes.
Yeah.
Tim Bewick says, humble is what makes an individual great. Absolutely. And there's no greater.
No.
Reese Fleury says, such a humble man and a great friend. Knows him personally. He sponsors 2 classes at our show every year.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice to see
his
friends
trophies.
weighing in. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice to see his friends weighing in.
Many shows that'll buy the trophies out of his own pocket.
Wow. That's amazing. And here's someone on Facebook saying, always a pleasure to talk to Ed at our local shows. Such a great guy. And Ed Chukalowski says, Ed is a great guy. I'm honored to know him.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. It's cool to get these testimonials for him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dave Hill says, hello, guys. Hello back. James Whiteside says, great show, guys. Love the vintage snowmobiles, and thank you. And, here we go. There's someone on Facebook saying, Midge, I worked at a Ford garage for 36 years in Wausau, Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Got something in common.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, cool. So, yeah, that's about all we have for you tonight. And we managed to go almost a full 2 hours. Good times. And it's nice to see everyone on here through the whole thing. You know, it's because a lot of times people would check in for a few minutes and go. But it looks like most of the people here have been on for almost a full 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is there anything, Midge, that hasn't been said or hasn't been discussed in what we've been doing tonight? Or?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it, Mike. And, yeah. It's just a shame that the weather is changing the way it's been, with
Yeah,
no
these milder
snow
winters.
and no cold weather. So would be even the snow derby is not happening this year in Lancaster, which is yeah.
These milder winters are killing us.
Yeah, it's killing us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope it's just a pattern. I mean, you saw it, I think 79 and 80. Remember those 2 years, we're very shy of snow.
Yeah.
Those 2 years. And it's very similar to that. So,
yeah,
and
every
then
once in a
after
while we'll
that,
get a
we
few
had-
years where there's a pattern.
Then we had a lot of snow after that. So,
Yeah.
hopefully this is just a pattern. Yeah.
And we've got a few comments. Great show, gentlemen. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. Ben Thomas says, thank you for another great show, and you are very welcome, and we thank you for being part of this. Reese Fleury says, thank you for a great show. See you guys Thursday. Yes.
Yeah.
And Kevin Colhane says, great way to spend a Sunday night. Better than Walt Disney. Remember in the 70s watching Walt Disney every Sunday night? And what came first, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom or Disney? One came before the other. I don't remember what the order was, if it was Disney or Mutual Omaha. Todd McMillan says, thank you for a great show. And
yes.
Tim A says, have a good night, guys. Thanks for sharing all the great memories. And yeah, we like to be that place where for anyone who has fond memories of snowmobiling in the heyday, we like to be the place where people can come and reminisce and hang out and share images and videos and stories and show and tell of sleds. And we're trying to be that place where that all happens. It's a celebration.
I can't believe I aged in 12 years as much as I did with that video there that you. My hair was a lot darker and
yeah. The clock is ticking, man.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, James Whiteside says 79 and 80 in Illinois. There were plenty of snow there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Dave Hill,
we had a bad couple of years there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave Hill is Dave from Alaska Railroad. He's a regular on a lot of these podcasts.
Yes.
And Dave from Alaska Railroad on Facebook. He's sorry you missed the show. He's going to rewind afterwards. We appreciate that. Well done as always. Thank you for that. Midnight Rider says, another awesome show. See you Thursday. Thank you so much. And Reese Fleury says, Mid had only one channel. Yeah, most of us had one or two channels for TV back in the day.
Yeah, we had Channel 8. That was it.
Yes, WMTW, Poland Springs, Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Rob Hilditch, our good friend, says, what are you going to do to top this show? Good question. Yeah, the pressure's on now.
Yeah.
We've got at least one, maybe even 2 more weeks worth of video clips in the can, kind of like what we've been doing the last 2 weeks. It'll be more of that kind of thing, but we've still got a little bit more for you. We're going to try to make this a fun winter for everyone. But we thank you, Rob, for viewing tonight, and we thank you so much for everything you do on Wednesday and Thursday nights as part of the Muscle Car Podcast and the Vintage Snowmobile Podcast. And one of these times we've got to get Midge on Thursday night to hang out with us. So that Rob and Midge can finally meet, because they've been kind of communicating through me on the podcast for several years now, and we got to get them to meet, and we should do it soon. Definitely. Thank you for all the history, Mike and Midge. John Spranger, I was at the Ford Tech in Wausau. Okay, so it was John Spranger saying that. Cool. So John Spranger was the Ford Tech.
Wow.
Oh, and here good question. Alan Gove says, when is the next Hall of Fame induction ceremony? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's September 7th, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
September 7th.
At the museum.
Yes, Cranes.
We'll probably try an outdoor. We usually try an outdoor event. We did it at the fairgrounds only because we thought it was going to rain.
Yes.
And that's why we did it up there under the big commercial hall.
That worked out nice too.
Yeah, it did.
And it was gray all day. I think it might have sprinkled a couple times. It never really.
It did in the morning. It rained in the morning. So, and you know what that would do to a sound system.
Yes. Yeah.
You just can't. You can't get any water on stuff like that. So.
No. And Alan Gove says he's going to mark it on his calendar. Yes, we hope to see you there, Al.
Yeah.
And Jeff Maurer says Ed got home from dialysis Friday at 11, and we left at 11:45. Drove to New Hampshire. They were up there at 6:05. Thank you for a great show at Cranes. Great seeing you both, Mike and Midge. Yes, and I know I had a great visit with Jeff yesterday, and you probably did as well.
Yes, yeah. Nice people.
Yes. And Jeffrey Patton says, good show, guys. See you on Amsoil Thursday night. Yes, looking forward to that. Oh, and our good friend James Spranger says, thank you for a great show. We appreciate that. Cool deal. So, yeah, we're running out of time here. It's kind of like Cinderella if we don't finish at 10, because we've got a 2-hour window to work with this interface that I do. And at the 2-hour mark, it's like Cinderella. It all closes. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. But thank you so much to our viewers, and thank you to Midge. It's been a wonderful evening. It's flown right by. 2 hours just flew by.
It did.
And
all right, Mike. Thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you as well. Thank you for bringing all this wonderful history, and thank you to our viewers for making this a community. We're enjoying this as a community.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. Have a good evening.
All right. Night.